Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. We're going to be taking a look at a super top tier formation, and I've just absolutely loved this formation. Took it into weekend league this week and had a lot of fun with it and a lot of good success. Now this 4-3-3-4, first and foremost, I took it into weekend league this week and I went 11-0. Now for me personally, I typically get to that sort of score anyway. My last couple of weekends, I hit 14-0. I hit 14-1 last week, and then 11-0 this week. So generally, I hit kind of that sort of score anyway. So it doesn't make this formation any better or worse than some of the other ones that we do play. And we do always say it is the player, not the formation, that makes the score. But without further ado, this 4-3-3-4 was very good. Now people might say, oh, it was easier this weekend because all the good people were doing icon swaps. And I beg to differ. I think if you're a good player, you should be able to make most formations work. But this 4-3-3-4 was super fun. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the 4-2-2-2. It's my favorite formation. So I just wanted to try something else out, just for something a little bit different. And I really like this 4-3-3-4. It was super good. It had a lot of the good characteristics I like in a formation. You know, it has that central cam striker link up, which I think for me is really important. I do like the two striker formations. I think they are really effective. But I also like the formations that have a striker and a cam that can almost play almost like a centre forward, and this just works super well. So those tactics we used, these were super good. You know, pressure on heavy touch. The one thing that I will say before we get into anything about the pressure on heavy touch and things like that, you do need to be a fairly confident sort of 1v1 defender, because those two midfielders, because we do use them as more attacking midfielders rather than defensive midfielders. So sometimes, you know, with the pressure on heavy touch, you can get caught out a little bit on the counter and you can be left sort of 1v1. Obviously, a lot of people like to play with like that 6-4 split. So you can get left sort of 1v1. So you might be 1v1 fullback versus winger, centre-back versus striker, you know, centre-back versus cam. So you do have to be a fairly confident 1v1 defender because of the way we set this formation up. Me personally, I am a fairly confident 1v1 defender. I find that I can do a good job. You know, at the very least, I can stall until those midfielders do get back in position. So I like the pressure on heavy touch. I think it works really well. And it's just the best one for me personally. Defense wise, standard 5 width. I never really change that for any formation. I don't really think it's super necessary to change that for any formation. Depth wise, again, I've been sticking on 6 recently a lot, and I've been liking this. You know, I used to play on sort of like 4, and I just found it was a little bit too deep. You know, naturally just didn't quite work for me. I've moved it up to the 6 the last couple of weeks. I moved it onto my 4-2-2 formation. I moved up to 6 depth. And it just seems to be the best balance. You know, I don't want to go too crazy and be 8 or 9. You know, that's just silly in my opinion. But you know, I don't think there's really any need to go lower than sort of 5. But I find 6 gives me a good balance. I never really leave too much space in behind or anything like that. Obviously, every now and then, you know, it does get exploited. But for the majority of the time, I don't really have too many issues with that. Then we move to long ball. Just works perfect in 4-3-3 formations. You know, I'm not a huge fan of fast build up. For me, when I look at the offensive style, the only ones I ever really use are long ball and fast build up. I never really use balanced or possession because I just don't think they work in this game. Balance just certainly doesn't work, and possession is just a little bit too slow, and it just doesn't really suit my style of play. So the only ones I ever try fast build up and long ball. Fast build up can work for this formation. I'm not a fan of fast build up really in any formation. I just find that it just causes more issues than, you know, creates, you know, solutions. And a long ball for me is just the one that I always go to in every formation. It works super well if you've got pacey players, you know, which 90% of people who play FIFA do. You know, long ball is just the go-to tactic when it comes to the offensive style. Width-wise, gone a little bit narrower. Obviously, I want to get those wingers involved. Those wingers having a slightly narrower starting position, so it's just a little bit easier to kind of get them involved in link-up play and scoring goals and doing that business. And then players in the box we've got on 4. I'm not a big crosser of the ball, especially since they've nerfed crossing now. So I don't think having too many players in the box for crossing is super important. Obviously, you can still score from that driven cross, but it's not as broken and overpowered as it was, so you don't really need as many players in the box as possible. This is just for crossing, so you don't need as many players there. And then corners and free kicks we keep on standard. So then moving across to the instructions, we have the whole back 4 obviously on stay back while attacking, but we have them all on conservative interceptions as well. And this is because we don't have that protection in front of us with those 2 CDMs. just naturally they're not CDMs anyway. They are centre midfielders, and they are not set to stay back while attacking. So we have them on conservative interceptions because we can't afford these guys potentially jumping in and lunging into tackles to try and intercept the ball, because if they miss, there's no cover. You know, there's no CDM to kind of drop back into that centre back spot, or just use to cover potentially if a centre back is out of position. So we can't afford them diving in. So I want them on conservative. I don't want them making mistakes and potentially costing me goals that way. We've then got Alan and Sissoko. Now we have them on balanced and then stay on edge of the box. Stay on edge of the box. Again, we don't need them going into the box. I don't want them to. I want them on the edge of the box, you know, prepped and ready for that counter attack if needed. Now, these guys, I play them as sort of balanced midfielders. So that's kind of who your personnel wants to be. You know, Alan and Sissoko, probably not ideal for this formation. So that was only the little thing that I had with this formation, is just when I was playing it, Alan and Sissoko are not the right players, and that was what I found, that I kept subbing them off for different players because they're just too defensive. They are defensive midfielders. You want those box-to-box type midfielders. You know, people like Pogba are really good for this. Maybe a De Bruyne, a Bruno Fernandes can do that. They need to have a little bit of defensive nous about them because they do get in some defensive positions, but they do need to have good attacking qualities as well, because they do mainly sort of passing and dribbling are kind of the main things you want to be looking for. You don't necessarily need shooting. They don't get into too many shooting opportunities, but they need to be able to at least have decent passing and decent dribbling, and then some defensive stats. But overall, they do a really good job. And as I said, occasionally when you get countered, you can get countered from time to time. So that's why they need to have a little bit of defensive nous about them. But then move up to Mole, who's playing as my cam. Obviously, I like to have a central cam. I just like to use really for any cam, central cams, wide cams. I like the free roam tactic. I just think it's just a must. I've forgotten what it's like to play with them on stick to position, because I've just used free roam so long now, and I just never would go back to stick to position. I just think free roam works so well, just creates so many opportunities. It makes it difficult for your opponent to pick up, and it's just a really good tactic to use. We then got Owen on stay central and getting behind. Now we have that long ball on, so you don't necessarily need Owen on getting behind. You can just leave him on mixed if you want. He'll still make the runs in behind because of the long ball tactic, but every now and again he will kind of play as a target man, potentially even a false nine. I just want to go with the getting behind, just because his link up play with Owen having really bad passing. I don't really want him as a target man or a false nine, because his passing is terrible and is just not going to make too many good passes for me, so I want him on getting behind. And then Neymar out on the left and Mane out on the right hand side. Got them on cut inside and getting behind. Now the cut inside tactic, you know, really works hand in hand with the fact that we've got them on the narrow width on the offensive. So they're just going to start a little bit narrower naturally, and then the cut inside allows them to link up with those midfielders, with Owen. They do still kind of get out wide, and they're not wide permanently, you know, narrow permanently. They do get out wide, and they do get some good opportunities to create some space. It's really good if you're good at skills with players like Neymar and Mane. They can just make it really difficult for your opponent to defend. And then the getting behind tactic really works well with the long ball tactic that we set up. But this 4-3-3-4 tactic, I really enjoyed it. Would I say it's as good as the 4-2-2-2? No, I wouldn't. I love that 4-2-2-2, and in my eyes, there's nothing that's close to that 4-2-2-2. But this 4-3-3-4 was really good, and I was trying it out for a little while in Rivals, and then tried it out in Weekend League, and I just liked it. I just thought it was really good and just worked really well for me and my playstyle, and it's definitely something I'm going to use going forwards as like my secondary formation. If my 4-2-2-2 is not working, this 4-3-3-4 is obviously sat there as my second slot, just to change to something else. And I really do enjoy this formation. So if you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more, make sure you drop a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button as well if you are new to the channel. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.